The snow fell in thick curtains that February evening, turning the city streets into a blur of white and shadow. 8-year-old Shanice pressed her small body against the red brick wall of the restaurant, her thin purple jacket doing nothing to keep out the bitter cold. Her lips had turned blue, and her fingers felt like ice inside her worn mittens. She had been waiting for 20 minutes, watching well-dressed people go in and out of the golden doors, their laughter floating into the frozen air like smoke. She knew what she had to do. Her sister Brianna had told her to stay put in their broken-down car 3 blocks away, but the heater had stopped working an hour ago, and Shanice couldn't feel her toes anymore. She had watched her sister walk toward the homeless shelter, hoping for beds, but Shanice knew they were probably full. They had been full every night this week. A man stepped out of the restaurant, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive charcoal coat that fell to his knees. His face was handsome in a stern way, with dark eyes that seemed to look through things rather than at them. He paused on the sidewalk, pulling leather gloves from his pocket, when Shanice made her move. "Sir," she whispered, her voice shaking from cold and fear. "Sir, can I slip under your coat?" Christopher Thornton froze. In his 35 years of life, in all his billions, in all his business dealings and charitable works, no one had ever asked him such a thing. He looked down at the small girl, taking in her chattering teeth, her desperate eyes, the way she hugged herself to stay warm. He didn't speak. He never spoke. Not since the accident 10 years ago that had taken his parents and his voice in one terrible night. But his hands moved quickly, unbuttoning his coat. He knelt down on the snowy sidewalk, not caring about his expensive suit pants, and opened the coat wide. Shanice didn't hesitate. She rushed forward and pressed herself against his warm sweater, and he wrapped the coat around both of them. She was so small that she fit completely inside, her head barely reaching his chest. He could feel her violent shivering, her small frame trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Thank you," she sobbed into his sweater. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Christopher's mind raced. Where were her parents? Why was a child alone on the street in this weather? He pulled out his phone with one hand, keeping the other arm around her, and typed quickly, "Are you alone? Where is your family?" Shanice looked at the phone screen, her eyes widening. "My sister. She went to find us a place to sleep. Our car broke down and we don't have anywhere to go. Please don't call the police. They'll separate us. I'm supposed to wait in the car, but I was so cold." Christopher's heart clenched. He had given away millions to help people, funded shelters, built housing, but here was a child freezing on his doorstep, and all his money hadn't prevented this moment. He typed again, "I will help. Where is your sister?" "She went to the shelter on 5th Street, Shanice said, her teeth still chattering. "But she's been gone so long." Christopher stood, keeping his coat wrapped around the girl, and began walking. His driver, Thomas, had been waiting in the car across the street and immediately started the engine, pulling up beside them. Christopher opened the door and helped Shanice inside, sliding in beside her. The warm air from the heater made her gasp. He typed on his phone and showed Thomas, 5th Street shelter. Quickly. The car moved smoothly through the snow-covered streets. Shanice pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "That's my sister," she suddenly cried out, pointing at a figure trudging through the snow. "That's Brianna." Christopher tapped Thomas's shoulder and pointed. The car slowed to a stop and Christopher opened the door. Brianna Jackson was 28 years old, beautiful even in her exhaustion, with warm brown skin and natural hair pulled back in a bun under a red knit cap. She wore a green winter coat that had seen better days, and her eyes were red from crying as she walked through the snow. When she saw the expensive car stop beside her and then saw her sister inside, her face transformed through several emotions: shock, fear, relief, confusion. "Shanice," she breathed, rushing forward. "Baby, who are you?" Christopher stepped out of the car, and Brianna took in his expensive clothes, his silent presence, the way her sister clung to his coat. For a moment she looked ready to snatch Shanice away to run, but then she saw her sister's face, saw the warmth and safety there, and she broke. "I'm sorry," Brianna sobbed, reaching for Shanice. "I'm so sorry, baby. The shelter was full. They're all full. I didn't know what to do. I left you in the car and it was so cold, and I'm sorry." Shanice wrapped her arms around her sister's neck. "This man helped me, Bri. He shared his coat. He's nice." Christopher pulled out his phone and typed, turning the screen toward Brianna. "I am Christopher Thornton. Your sister asked for help. I want to give it. Please get in the car. You are both freezing." Brianna read the message, her eyes scanning Christopher's face, looking for any sign of danger or ill intent. She found none. His dark eyes were serious but kind, and there was something in his stillness that felt safe rather than threatening. "I don't have money," Brianna said quietly. "I can't pay you back right now. We lost our apartment last week. I lost my job at the hospital because I missed too many shifts taking care of Shanice. I don't have anything." Christopher typed quickly, "I do not want money. I want to help. Please. It is too cold for this conversation." Brianna looked at her sister, who nodded eagerly. "He's warm, Bri. And he's kind. I can tell." Making a decision that would change her life, Brianna climbed into the car. Christopher followed, closing the door against the cold. He typed to Thomas, "Thornton Hotel. Personal suite." As the car moved through the snowy streets, Brianna held Shanice close, feeling the warmth return to her sister's small body. She watched Christopher from the corner of her eye, this silent stranger who had appeared in their darkest moment like an answer to prayers she hadn't dared to speak. "Why are you helping us?" Brianna asked softly. Christopher looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his chest. He saw her strength despite her tears, her fierce love for her sister, her beauty that went beyond her features. He typed, "Because your sister asked. Because you need help. Because I can give it. Is that not enough?" Brianna read the message and felt something crack open inside her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, that's enough." The car pulled up to the Thornton Hotel, the most expensive in the city. The doorman rushed forward with an umbrella, and Christopher led them inside, past the staring staff, past the luxurious lobby with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, into a private elevator that went to the top floor. Shanice had never seen anything so beautiful. "Are we in a palace?" she whispered. Christopher's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. He typed, "Something like that." The penthouse suite was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the snowy city below. There were 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room larger than the apartment Brianna and Shanice had lost. Christopher immediately went to the thermostat and turned up the heat, then moved to the phone. He wrote on a notepad, "What sizes? For clothes. And what food do you like?" "You don't have to." Brianna started, but Christopher held up a hand and wrote, "Please. Let me help. No arguments." Brianna swallowed hard and told him their sizes. Christopher made several calls, typing instructions to someone on the other end, and within 30 minutes, bags began arriving. Warm pajamas, thick socks, toiletries, food from the hotel restaurant. "Take hot showers," Christopher wrote. "Get warm. We will talk after." Brianna wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some dignity, but she looked at Shanice's blue lips and cold hands and she nodded. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you so much." Christopher watched them disappear into one of the bedrooms, and he sat down on the couch, his hands shaking slightly. He had built an empire, controlled billions, influenced markets and governments, but he had never felt so needed, so purposeful as he did in this moment. An hour later, Brianna emerged from the bedroom wearing the soft blue pajamas Christopher had provided. Her hair was down now, falling in natural curls around her shoulders, and her face looked younger without the stress and cold. Shanice was already asleep in the big bed, full of warm soup and exhausted from the ordeal. "She's out," Brianna said softly, sitting across from Christopher in the living room. "I don't think she slept well in days." Christopher nodded and pushed a notebook and pen across the coffee table to himself, writing, "Tell me your story. How did you end up on the street?" Brianna took a deep breath. "My parents died 2 years ago. Car accident. Shanice was 6. I became her guardian. I was working as a nurse at City General, had a small apartment, was making it work. Then 6 months ago Shanice got sick. Really sick. She was in the hospital for weeks. I used all my sick days, all my vacation days, but it wasn't enough. They fired me for missing too many shifts. The medical bills piled up. I couldn't pay rent. We've been living in my car for 3 weeks trying to figure it out. I've applied everywhere, but no one wants to hire someone with a gap in employment and a child to care for." Her voice was steady, but Christopher could see the shame and exhaustion in her eyes. He wrote quickly, "You are not a failure. You are a survivor. You kept your sister alive and safe under impossible conditions. That takes strength." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. "I left her in a cold car tonight. What kind of strength is that?" Christopher leaned forward, making sure she was looking at him. He wrote in large letters, "The kind that keeps going even when everything is impossible. The kind that loves enough to do the hard things. You did not fail. The system failed you." Brianna wiped her eyes. "Why don't you speak?" she asked gently. "You don't have to tell me. I'm curious." Christopher hesitated, then wrote, accident 10 years ago. Lost my parents and my voice in one night. Damage to vocal cords was permanent. I could get surgery but I chose not to. The silence taught me to listen. To really see people. I hear more now than I did when I could speak. I'm sorry about your parents, Brianna said softly. I understand that loss. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind of silence that felt full rather than empty. Christopher wrote again. Stay here as long as you need. I own this hotel. This suite is yours. Tomorrow we will figure out the rest. But tonight just rest. Be warm. Be safe. I can't just take. Brianna started, but Christopher shook his head and wrote, yes, you can. Sometimes kindness is just kindness. Let it be that simple. Brianna looked at this strange, silent man who had appeared in their lives like a miracle. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Thank you, Christopher. He nodded, stood, and moved toward the door. Before leaving, he wrote one more note and left it on the table. You are not alone anymore. As Christopher walked to his own penthouse 2 floors up, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Oh, purpose beyond money. A connection to something real. In the suite below, Brianna climbed into bed beside Shanice, pulling her sister close. For the first time in weeks she felt safe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for tonight they were warm and fed and protected. And somewhere in that expensive hotel, a silent billionaire lay awake, thinking about a little girl's whispered question and her sister's brave, broken eyes, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, he had found something worth more than all his billions. Have you ever wondered what you would do if a child asked you for help in their darkest moment? Would you walk away or would you stop and change their life forever? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to see how Christopher and Brianna's journey unfolds. Comment below, what would you have done in Christopher's place? Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the penthouse suite into a canvas of gold and white. Brianna woke slowly, confused for a moment about where she was. The bed was too soft, the sheets too smooth, the room too quiet. Then memory rushed back, the snow, the stranger, the safety. She turned to check on Shanice and found the space beside her empty. Panic seized her chest as she bolted upright, but then she heard it. Laughter. Her sister's laughter, light and carefree, coming from somewhere in the suite. Brianna pulled on the robe that had been provided and followed the sound to the living room. There she found Shanice sitting at a table laden with breakfast foods. Pancakes, fruit, eggs, bacon, pastries, juice, milk. And sitting across from her, looking somehow less intimidating in casual jeans and a navy sweater, was Christopher. He was showing Shanice something on a tablet and her sister was giggling, pointing at the screen. When Shanice saw Brianna, she jumped up and ran over. Bri, look. Mr. Christopher showed me videos of puppies. And there's so much food. I had 3 pancakes already. Christopher stood, nodding politely at Brianna. He picked up his phone and typed, Good morning. I hope you slept well. I took the liberty of ordering breakfast. Shanice told me she likes pancakes. Good morning, Brianna said, feeling awkward in borrowed pajamas and robe, her hair wild from sleep. Thank you for all this. You didn't have to. Christopher tilted his head slightly and typed, I wanted Tio. Please eat. Then we can talk about next steps. They sat together at the table and Brianna found herself eating the best meal she'd had in months. Christopher watched them with quiet contentment, occasionally typing something amusing for Shanice on his tablet, making her laugh. You're good with kids, Brianna observed. Christopher's expression flickered with something Brianna couldn't quite read. He typed, I have funded many children's programs. Hospitals, schools, shelters. But I rarely interact directly. Shanice is easy to talk to, even without words. After breakfast, Christopher sent Shanice to watch cartoons in one of the bedrooms, then sat down with Brianna in the living room. He had a leather portfolio with him and he opened it carefully. I have a proposal, he typed. Please hear me out completely before you respond. Brianna's stomach tightened with anxiety, but she nodded. Christopher wrote quickly, his handwriting neat and clear. I run a charitable foundation. The Thornton Foundation. It provides housing, education, and support to families in crisis. I need someone to manage the day-to-day operations. Someone who understands what it means to struggle. Someone with compassion and intelligence. I would like to offer you that job. Brianna stared at the words. I'm a nurse, not a manager. I don't have experience in. Christopher held up a hand and continued writing. You have experience in caring for people. In making hard decisions. In managing limited resources. Those are the skills I need. The rest can be learned. The position comes with a salary of $85,000 per year, health insurance for you and Shanice, and housing in my guest house on my property. The guest house is small, 2 bedrooms, but it is warm and safe and yours for as long as you work for me. Brianna's hands trembled. Why would you do this? You don't know me. I could be terrible at this job. I don't understand. Christopher's dark eyes held hers as he wrote, I believe in second chances. I believe that circumstances do not define worth. You protected your sister through impossible odds. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Also, I am selfish. The foundation needs someone who truly understands the people we help. You are that person. What if I fail? Brianna whispered. I will help you succeed, Christopher wrote. You will not be alone in this. Brianna thought about refusing. Thought about how accepting felt like charity, like admitting defeat. But then she remembered Shanice's blue lips in the snow, the cold car, the full shelters, the desperation. She remembered Christopher's words from last night. Sometimes kindness is just kindness. When do I start? She asked, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. Christopher's eyes crinkled slightly, almost a smile. He wrote, today, if you want. Or take a week to settle in. Your choice. Today, Brianna said firmly. I want to start today. Christopher nodded and wrote, first we get you and Shanice proper clothes. Then I show you the foundation offices and your new home. Sound good? It sounds like a dream, Brianna admitted. A dream I'm afraid to believe in. It is real, Christopher wrote. I promise you that. The next few hours passed in a blur. Christopher took them to an upscale department store, but not the kind where Brianna had ever shopped before. The staff knew him by name or by sight since he couldn't speak, and treated them like royalty. Christopher insisted on getting them everything. Professional clothes for Brianna, play clothes and school clothes for Shanice, winter coats that would actually keep them warm, shoes that fit properly. Every time Brianna tried to protest the expense, Christopher would simply show her his phone. This is what I want to do. Please let me. And Brianna, remembering her promise to accept help with gratitude, would nod and say thank you. Shanice picked out a bright red winter coat with a fluffy hood, and when she saw herself in the mirror, she spun around, her face glowing. Bri, I look like a princess. You are a princess, Brianna said, her throat tight with emotion. Christopher typed to Shanice, the best kind. A brave one. Next, they went to the foundation offices, a modern building in a good part of the city. The staff there greeted Christopher with obvious respect and affection, communicating with him through a mix of sign language, notes, and an understanding that came from working together for years. He introduced Brianna to everyone. Maria Rodriguez, the accountant, Patrick O'Brien, the housing coordinator, Jennifer Lee, the education program director. Each person welcomed Brianna warmly, and she could see in their eyes that they trusted Christopher completely. Christopher showed her to an office, bright and spacious with windows overlooking the city. On the desk was a new computer, office supplies, and a welcome folder with information about every program the foundation ran. Your office, he typed. Take time to learn everything. Ask questions. Make changes if you see ways to improve. This is yours now. I don't know how to thank you, Brianna said, overwhelmed. Christopher wrote, do good work. Help people. That is thanks enough. Finally, as afternoon turned to evening, Christopher drove them to his property. It was in a quiet neighborhood, tree-lined and peaceful. His main house was a beautiful craftsman-style home, and beside it, separated by a garden path, was the guest house. It was small as Christopher had said, but perfect. 2 bedrooms, a bathroom with a tub, a kitchen with new appliances, a living room with comfortable furniture. Everything was clean and ready, as if Christopher had known they would say yes. This is really ours? Shanice breathed, running from room to room. Christopher nodded and typed, yours. Make it a home. Brianna walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the counters, the furniture. Real, solid, permanent. Her eyes filled with tears as she returned to the living room where Christopher waited. I was so scared yesterday, she said quietly. I thought we'd lost everything. I thought I'd failed Shanice. And now? She gestured around the house. Now we have more than we ever did. How do I process that? Christopher thought for a moment, then wrote, you do not have to process it all at once. Just live in it. Be happy. Let Shanice be happy. The rest will come. Why us? Brianna asked, the question that had been burning in her mind all day. You could help anyone. Why did you stop for us? Christopher looked at her for a long moment. Then he wrote something personal, something true, because Shanice asked. Because in all my years of giving money and building programs, no one had ever asked me so directly, so honestly for something so simple. She reminded me that help doesn't always have to be complicated. Sometimes it is just sharing your coat. And you? You remind me that strength comes in many forms. I admire you. Brianna felt something shift in her chest, something warm and unexpected. I admire you too, she said softly. Your silence, it's not a disability. It's a superpower. You listen so carefully. You see people so clearly. Christopher's expression softened. He wrote thank you. Not many people understand that. They stood in the living room of the guest house, the silence between them comfortable and full of possibility. Shanice ran back in, breaking the moment. Bree, there's a park across the street. Can we go tomorrow? Please? We can go tomorrow, Brianna promised, laughing. We can do lots of things now. Christopher checked his watch and typed, I should go. Let you settle in. But I am right next door if you need anything. And tomorrow we start work. 9 a.m.? 9 a.m., Brianna agreed. And Christopher? Thank you. For everything. For seeing us. For helping us. For giving us hope. Christopher nodded, his eyes warm. He typed one last message. You gave me something too. Purpose. Reminder of why I do this work. So thank you as well. As he walked back to his house through the garden path, Christopher felt lighter than he had in years. He had helped countless people through his foundation, but never had it felt so personal, so meaningful. Never had he met someone like Brianna, strong and broken and beautiful, raising her sister with such fierce love. In the guest house, Brianna watched him go from the window. She knew this was just the beginning, that there would be challenges ahead, that she would have to prove herself in this new job. But for the first time in so long she felt ready. She felt capable. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Bree, are we going to live here forever? Shanice asked, climbing onto the couch. I don't know about forever, baby. But for now, yes. This is our home. And Mr. Christopher is our neighbor? Yes, he is. Shanice smiled, a real, genuine, unworried smile. Good. I like him. He's nice. Even when he doesn't talk. Especially when he doesn't talk, Brianna said softly, thinking about Christopher's careful attention, his thoughtful responses, the way he truly listened to every word. That night, as Brianna tucked Shanice into bed in their new home, with warm blankets and soft pillows and a nightlight that cast gentle stars on the ceiling, she felt tears slip down her cheeks. But these were different tears. Not tears of desperation or fear or exhaustion, but tears of gratitude and relief and hope. Why are you crying, Bree? Shanice asked sleepily. Because we're safe, baby. We're finally safe. Because of Mr. Christopher? Because of Mr. Christopher, Brianna agreed. And because you were brave enough to ask for help. Shanice yawned. He was warm. I knew he would help. As Brianna left the room, she thought about that. About how a child's instinct had been right, about how one moment of vulnerability and trust had changed everything. About how sometimes the help you need comes in the most unexpected forms, from the most unexpected people. And in his house next door, Christopher sat at his piano, his fingers moving over the keys in a gentle melody. He hadn't played in weeks, but tonight he felt inspired. Tonight he felt connected to something beyond his solitary life. Tonight he felt like maybe his silence had been waiting for someone who would understand it, who would see through it to the person underneath. He played late into the night, and across the garden path, Brianna fell asleep to the distant sound of music, feeling like she had finally come home. The first week in the guest house felt like living in a dream Brianna kept expecting to end. Each morning she woke up in a comfortable bed, made breakfast in a real kitchen, and walked Shanice across the street to catch the school bus. The local elementary school had accepted Shanice immediately after Christopher made a few calls, and seeing her sister skip to the bus with her red coat bright against the morning light made Brianna's heart swell. The foundation office became Brianna's new world. She spent the first few days overwhelmed by the scope of Christopher's work. The Thornton Foundation wasn't just a charity, it was a carefully designed system that helped families in crisis move towards stability. They paid first and last month's rent for families facing eviction, covered utility bills during hard times, provided groceries and school supplies, paid for job training and education. Maria, the accountant, showed Brianna the books. We help about 50 families at any given time, she explained, her accent soft and musical. Mr. Thornton reviews every application personally. He remembers every family, every child, every story. How long have you worked for him? Brianna asked. 8 years. He hired me when I was struggling after my divorce. Single mother, no one wanted to take a chance on me. But Mr. Thornton, he saw my potential. Now my kids are in college. Because of him. Patrick, the housing coordinator, shared a similar story during lunch in the break room. I was homeless myself 10 years ago. Mr. Thornton found me at a shelter he was funding. Offered me a job, training, a place to live. Changed my whole life. That's what he does. He changes lives. Brianna began to understand that the foundation wasn't just about Christopher's money. It was about his attention, his belief in people, his refusal to give up on anyone. Each evening she would find notes from him on her desk, written in his neat handwriting, asking thoughtful questions about the families they were helping, suggesting new programs, encouraging her ideas. One evening, as Brianna was locking up the office, Christopher appeared in her doorway. He typed on his phone, "How was your first week?" "Overwhelming." "Amazing." "Humbling," Brianna said honestly. "I had no idea the scope of what you do. You've helped so many people." Christopher shrugged slightly and typed, "Just using what I have. Money means nothing if it sits in accounts. It should move. Should help. Should create opportunity." "Where did you learn that?" "Not many wealthy people think that way." Christopher's expression grew distant. He typed slowly, "My parents. They believed in responsibility. That wealth was a trust, not a trophy. They started this foundation when I was young. When they died, I almost shut it down. Too painful. But then I realized it was my way to honor them. To continue their work. They sound like remarkable people." They were. "I miss them every day." "I miss mine too," Brianna said softly. "It's been 2 years and sometimes it still feels like yesterday." Christopher nodded, understanding in his eyes. He typed, "Grief never leaves completely. It just becomes part of you. Shapes who you are." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two people bound by loss, by understanding, by the strange circumstances that had brought them together. "Would you and Shanice like to have dinner with me?" Christopher typed. "I make a decent pasta. Nothing fancy." "You cook?" Brianna asked, surprised. Christopher's lips twitched. "I am full of surprises." "Okay," Brianna said, smiling. "We'd love to." An hour later, Brianna and Shanice walked through the garden path to Christopher's house. Shanice held a bouquet of flowers they'd picked from the garden. "Are these okay to give him, Bri?" "They're perfect, baby." Christopher's house was warm and welcoming, with dark wood floors, comfortable furniture, and photographs on the walls. Not formal portraits, but candid shots of people laughing, children playing, families together. Brianna realized they must be the families the foundation had helped. Christopher took the flowers from Shanice with exaggerated delight, typing, "These are the most beautiful flowers anyone has ever given me. Thank you, Shanice." Shanice beamed. "You're welcome, Mr. Christopher." The kitchen was Christopher's domain. He moved around it with confidence, boiling pasta, making sauce from scratch, preparing garlic bread. Brianna sat at the counter with Shanice, watching him work. There was something mesmerizing about his competence, his focus, the way he moved with purpose. "Can I help?" Brianna offered. Christopher shook his head and typed with one hand while stirring with the other. "Tonight you are my guests. Just relax." Shanice chatted easily about her new school, her new friends, her new teacher Mrs. Anderson, who let her be the line leader twice this week. Christopher listened attentively, nodding and smiling, occasionally typing questions that made Shanice laugh. When dinner was ready, they sat at a table by the window overlooking the garden. The pasta was delicious, the garlic bread perfect, the salad fresh. But more than the food, Brianna enjoyed the atmosphere. The easiness of it. The feeling of family. "This is really good," Brianna said. "Where did you learn to cook?" Christopher typed, "My mother. She insisted I learn. Said a man who could feed himself and others would never be helpless. She was right. She sounds like a wise woman. She was tough too. Did not accept excuses or self-pity. Even after my accident, when I wanted to hide from the world, she pushed me to keep living. To find purpose beyond my pain. I think she'd be proud of you," Brianna said softly. Christopher's expression softened. He typed, "I hope so. I try to live up to their example. Some days are easier than others." After dinner, Christopher showed Shanice his piano. "Do you play?" he typed to her. "No. But I always wanted to learn." Christopher pulled out the bench and patted the seat beside him. He placed Shanice's small hands on the keys and began to teach her a simple melody. Brianna watched from the doorway, her throat tight with emotion. Christopher was so patient, so gentle, celebrating every correct note, encouraging her through mistakes. "Bri, I'm playing piano," Shanice called out, her face glowing with joy. I hear you, baby. You sound beautiful. Christopher typed to Shanice, you are a natural. Would you like to take lessons? I could teach you. If your sister approves. Shanice turned to Brianna with pleading eyes. Can I, Bri? Please? Brianna hesitated. It felt like accepting too much, becoming too dependent. But then she remembered, accept help with gratitude. If Mr. Christopher is willing to take the time, then yes. Christopher nodded and typed, every Saturday morning. If that works. As the evening wound down and Brianna prepared to take Shanice home, Christopher walked them to the door. He typed, thank you for coming. It was nice to have company. The house feels less empty with people in it. Thank you for dinner. And for the piano lessons. You're very kind to us. Christopher looked at her, his dark eyes serious. He typed carefully, it is not kindness. It is selfishness. I enjoy your company. Both of you. You make me remember what it feels like to connect with people. To be more than just the silent billionaire. Brianna felt something flutter in her chest. You're so much more than that. I hope you know that. Christopher's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing his face. He typed, I am starting to believe it. As Brianna and Shanice walked back to the guest house through the garden path, Shanice said, I like Mr. Christopher. He's like family now. Like family, Brianna repeated softly, thinking about how quickly their lives had changed, how this strange silent man had become so important to them so fast. That night as Brianna lay in bed, she thought about Christopher's words. It is not kindness. It is selfishness. She understood what he meant. He wasn't just helping them out of obligation or charity. He genuinely wanted them in his life. The realization made her feel warm and nervous at the same time. She thought about his patient hands teaching Shanice piano, his careful attention to their needs, his quiet strength. She thought about how safe she felt around him, how seen, how valued. And she wondered, not for the first time, if maybe something more than gratitude was growing in her heart. But she pushed the thought away. It was too soon, too complicated. He was her employer, their benefactor. Getting emotional would be wrong, would risk everything they had gained. Still, as she drifted to sleep, she remembered the way Christopher had looked at her before they left, the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he had typed that he was starting to believe he was more than just the silent billionaire. And she wondered if maybe, just maybe, he felt it too. The weeks that followed settled into a comfortable rhythm. Brianna threw herself into her work at the foundation, learning quickly, bringing new ideas, connecting with the families they helped. Christopher gave her space to grow but was always available when she needed guidance. Shanice thrived. Her grades improved, she made friends, she smiled more than Brianna had seen her smile in 2 years. Every Saturday morning, Christopher taught her piano, and her progress was remarkable. She had a natural talent, and Christopher was a patient teacher. They fell into a pattern of having dinner together twice a week, sometimes at Christopher's house, sometimes at the guest house when Brianna cooked. The conversations, though often one-sided with Christopher typing, felt deep and real. They talked about everything: books, music, philosophy, their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Brianna learned that Christopher had inherited Thornton Industries, a tech company, at 25 when his parents died. He had grown it exponentially, using his silence as a strategic advantage in business, but his real passion was the foundation. She learned that he read constantly, that he loved jazz music, that he collected old maps, that he had a wry sense of humor that came through in his typed messages. Christopher learned that Brianna loved to sing but was shy about it, that she had once wanted to be a doctor but couldn't afford medical school, that she wrote poetry in a journal she kept hidden, that she was stronger than she believed herself to be. One evening, about 3 months after that first snowy night, Brianna was working late at the foundation office, reviewing applications for the scholarship program. Christopher appeared in her doorway carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one on her desk and typed, "You work too hard. Says the billionaire who's here at 8 p.m., Brianna said, smiling. Fair point. But I worry about you. You can delegate more. I want to do it right. These families are trusting us. Trusting you. I don't want to let anyone down." Christopher sat in the chair across from her desk. He typed, "You could never let anyone down. You care too much. It is one of the things I admire about you." Brianna felt her cheeks warm. One of the things? Christopher's lips curved slightly. He typed, "There are many things. Your strength. Your dedication to Shanice. Your laugh. The way you see the good in people. Your fierce heart." Christopher. Brianna said softly, her heart beating faster. He held up a hand and typed quickly, "I am sorry. I should not have said that. It is inappropriate. You work for me. I do not want to make you uncomfortable. You're not, Brianna said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. You're not making me uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with those words. I don't know if I deserve them. Christopher leaned forward, his eyes intense. He typed, You deserve every good thing. Every kindness. Every word of praise. You have been through so much and you are still standing. Still fighting. Still caring for others. That is remarkable. Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. You make me want to be better. To live up to what you see in me. You already are. They sat in silence, the air between them charged with something unspoken, something growing, something neither of them was quite ready to name. Finally, Christopher stood and typed, Go home. Get rest. Shanice will wonder where you are. Will I see you tomorrow? Brianna asked. Christopher nodded. Always. I am right next door. Remember? As Brianna walked home through the dark garden path, she felt the weight of realization settle over her. She was falling for Christopher Thornton. For his kindness, his strength, his silence that felt like a gift rather than a limitation. She was falling for the way he saw her, the way he believed in her, the way he made her feel safe and valued and worthy. And the scariest part was that she thought maybe he was falling for her too. In his house, Christopher stood at the window watching the light turn on in the guest house. He thought about Brianna's face when he had listed the things he admired about her, the way her eyes had softened, the way she had looked at him like maybe, just maybe, she felt something too. He knew he should be careful. She worked for him. She was vulnerable, rebuilding her life. The last thing he wanted was to take advantage of that. But he also knew that what he felt was real. That Brianna Jackson had walked into his life on a snowy night and changed everything. He sat at his piano and played late into the night, music that spoke what his voice could not, hoping that somehow, across the garden path, Brianna could hear it and understand. Spring arrived slowly, melting the snow and bringing green back to Christopher's garden. The daffodils and tulips bloomed in bright clusters, and Shanice spent hours after school playing in the yard, her laughter floating through the air like music. Brianna had been working at the foundation for 4 months now, and she had transformed the organization. She created a mentorship program, pairing families who had successfully rebuilt their lives with those just starting their journey. She streamlined the application process, making it less intimidating and more accessible. She organized community events where families could connect and support each other. Christopher watched her work with admiration and something deeper. She was brilliant, compassionate, and tireless. She remembered every family's story, every child's name, every struggle and triumph. She wasn't just managing the foundation, she was breathing new life into it. But he also saw how hard she pushed herself, how she arrived early and stayed late, how she took every setback personally. He worried about her burning out, about her trying to earn what he had already freely given. One Saturday morning, after Shanice's piano lesson, Christopher asked Brianna to stay for coffee. Shanice ran off to play in the garden, and Christopher led Brianna to his study, a comfortable room lined with books and maps. He poured coffee from a carafe and handed her a cup, then pulled out his phone. There is something I want to discuss with you. That sounds serious, Brianna said, her stomach tightening. Is something wrong? Am I not doing a good job? Christopher shook his head emphatically. He typed, You are doing an excellent job. Better than I could have hoped. This is about something else. About making your position more permanent. More secure. He handed her a folder. Inside was a contract, professionally drawn up by lawyers. Brianna read through it slowly. It was a 5-year contract with the foundation, with salary increases built in, expanded benefits, and a clause that guaranteed her position regardless of any changes to the foundation's leadership. At the end of the 5 years, she would have the option to renew or receive a generous severance package that would give her financial security while she pursued other opportunities. But what really caught her attention was the final page. It was a deed. A deed to the guest house. Christopher, I don't understand, she said, looking up at him. This says you're giving us the house? Christopher nodded and typed. Not immediately. But after 5 years of employment, the house becomes yours. Free and clear. It is my way of ensuring you and Shanice have permanent security. A home that no one can take from you. Brianna felt tears well up. This is too much. I can't accept something this valuable. Christopher sat beside her and typed carefully, You can. You will. Please listen to my reasoning. I have watched you work yourself to exhaustion trying to prove you deserve to be here. Trying to earn what I gave you. I want to remove that burden. I want you to know that your place here is secure. That you are not one bad decision or one economic downturn away from losing everything again. You deserve stability. You deserve peace. This contract gives you that. But what if something happens to you? What if you change your mind about us? Christopher's eyes were serious as he typed. The contract is legally binding. It protects you from my whims, from anyone who might take over the foundation after me, from any possible change in circumstance. You are protected. Shanice is protected. That is what matters to me. Brianna looked at the papers, then at Christopher, then back at the papers. This wasn't just a job offer. This was a promise. A commitment. A statement that he saw her as more than an employee, that he valued her, that he wanted her in his life permanently. Why do you care so much? She asked quietly. Really? Be honest with me. Christopher set down his phone and reached for a notebook. He wrote slowly, his handwriting flowing across the page. Because you and Shanice changed my life. Before that night in the snow, I was going through motions. Running the foundation because it was my duty, not my passion. Living in this big house alone, having relationships that were polite but not real. I was successful but empty. Then Shanice asked to slip under my coat, and everything shifted. Suddenly my work had a face, a story, a heart. Suddenly my home felt alive because you were next door. Suddenly I had someone to cook dinner for, to share ideas with, to care about. I know this is complicated because I am your employer. I know there is a power imbalance. That is why this contract is important. It ensures you can say no to me, can challenge me, can leave if you want, all without risking your security. It makes us more equal. But beyond all the practical reasons, the truth is simple. I care about you and Shanice. I want you in my life. Not just as employees or neighbors, but as family. As people who matter. You have become essential to me, and I want to be essential to you in a way that feels safe and right. Brianna read the note 3 times, her hands shaking. She looked at Christopher, really looked at him, and saw the vulnerability in his eyes, the hope, the fear of rejection. Can I tell you something? She asked softly. Christopher nodded. When you found us that night, I was at my lowest point. I thought I had failed Shanice. Failed my parents. Failed everything. I was ready to give up. And then you appeared, this silent stranger who saw us, really saw us, and chose to help without judgment, without conditions, without making us feel small. You gave us more than shelter and jobs. You gave us dignity. You gave us hope. She paused, gathering courage. And somewhere along the way you gave me something else. You made me believe I could be more than just a survivor. You made me want to build a life again, to dream again. You made me feel. She stopped, not quite ready to finish the sentence. Christopher leaned forward, his eyes questioning. Brianna took a deep breath. You made me feel like maybe I could be loved again. Not pitted, not rescued, but truly loved. For who I am, with all my mess and damage and fear. Christopher's hand moved to hers, his fingers gentle. He picked up his phone with his other hand and typed. You are loved. Not despite your mess and damage and fear, but including it. All of it. Every part of you is worth loving. Is this appropriate? Brianna whispered. You're my employer. What if people think? Christopher typed quickly. That is why the contract is important. It separates my personal feelings from your professional security. If you do not feel the same way, you can still sign it. Your job is safe either way. But if you do feel something, then we can figure out how to navigate this together. Carefully. Respectfully. Honestly. Brianna looked at their hands, his larger one covering hers, warm and steady. She thought about the last 4 months, the dinners, the conversations, the way her heart lifted every time she saw him. She thought about how safe she felt with him, how valued, how seen. I feel something, she admitted. I've been trying to tell myself it was just gratitude. But it's not. It's more. Christopher's eyes brightened. He typed. What is it? I don't know yet, Brianna said honestly. It's too new, too fragile. I don't want to rush it or ruin it. But I know I care about you. I know I think about you all the time. I know that when Shanice calls you Uncle Chris now, it makes my heart happy because it feels right. Christopher smiled, a real, full smile that transformed his face. He typed, Uncle Chris. I like that. So what do we do? Brianna asked. How do we do this without making it weird or complicated? Christopher thought for a moment, then typed. We take it slow. We keep being honest. We protect Shanice above everything. We make sure you feel safe and respected at every step. And we sign this contract first, so you know your security is separate from my feelings. Brianna picked up the contract again, reading through it more carefully. It was fair, generous, and clearly designed to protect her and Shanice. She saw Christopher's care in every clause, his determination to do right by them. "Where do I sign?" she asked. Christopher handed her a pen and Brianna signed the contract on his desk, making it official. 5 years at the foundation with the guest house becoming theirs at the end. Security. Stability. Home. After she signed, Christopher signed as well, then carefully placed the contract in a protective folder. He typed, "This goes to my lawyer on Monday. It will be filed and protected. You will get a copy for your records." "Thank you," Brianna said. "For all of this. For caring enough to make sure we're protected." Christopher typed, "I will always make sure you are protected. That is a promise." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Christopher typed something else. "Would you let me take you to dinner sometime? A real dinner. Not just US cooking at home. Somewhere nice. Just the two of us. Like a date?" Brianna asked, her heart racing. Christopher nodded. "Like a date. If you want." Brianna thought about it. Thought about Shanice, about work, about all the practical complications. Then she thought about Christopher's careful hands on piano keys, his thoughtful notes, his silent presence that had become so important to her. "Yes," she said. "I want that." Christopher's smile could have lit the whole room. That evening, as Brianna made dinner in the guest house, Shanice chattered about her piano lesson and the flowers she'd picked in the garden. Brianna listened with half her attention, the other half thinking about Christopher, about the contract, about the possibility of something beautiful growing between them. "Bri, are you listening?" Shanice asked. "Sorry, baby. What did you say?" "I said, do you like Uncle Chris?" Brianna's hands stilled over the vegetables she was chopping. "Of course I like him. He's been very good to us." "No, I mean, do you like him like him? Like the way people like each other in movies?" Brianna turned to look at her sister. "Why do you ask that?" Shanice shrugged. "Because he looks at you the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel. And you look at him the way Ariel looks at Prince Eric. Like you're happy just seeing each other." Brianna knelt down to Shanice's level. "How would you feel about that? If Uncle Chris and I liked each other that way?" Shanice thought about it seriously. "I think it would be good. He makes you smile. And he's nice to me. And we're already kind of like a family anyway. It would just make it more real." "You're pretty smart for an 8-year-old, Brianna said, pulling Shanice into a hug. "I know," Shanice said confidently. "Mrs. Anderson says I'm gifted." Later that night, after Shanice was asleep, Brianna sat at her window looking across the garden at Christopher's house. The light was on in his study and she could see his silhouette at the piano. She pulled out her phone and sent him a text. "Thank you for today. For everything. I'm looking forward to our dinner." A moment later her phone buzzed with his reply, "Me too. Sleep well, Brianna." She smiled at the screen, feeling something warm and hopeful bloom in her chest. For the first time in years she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with people who valued her, in a home that was becoming truly hers. And as she drifted to sleep she heard the faint sound of piano music floating through the spring air, Christopher's way of saying goodnight, his silence speaking volumes about everything he felt but couldn't say. The next few weeks were filled with anticipation. Christopher and Brianna continued their normal routines, but there was an undercurrent of excitement, of possibility. They were careful at the foundation, maintaining professional boundaries, but their lunch breaks together felt different now, charged with awareness. Christopher planned their date carefully. He chose a restaurant that was quiet and elegant but not stuffy, somewhere they could talk without being overheard. He arranged for Mrs. Chin, the kindly older woman who lived 2 houses down and adored Shanice, to stay with her for the evening. On the night of the date, Brianna stood in front of her closet, nervous. She had a new dress, a simple blue number that Christopher had noticed in a store window during one of their walks and subtly suggested would look beautiful on her. She hadn't worn anything so nice in years. Shanice sat on the bed, offering commentary. "That one. Definitely that one. You look like a princess." "I'm nervous," Brianna admitted. "What?" "It's just Uncle Chris." "That's exactly why. What if it's awkward? What if we can't figure out how to be more than what we are?" Shanice rolled her eyes with all the wisdom of 8 years. "Bri, you guys are already more. You just haven't kissed yet. That's the only difference." Brianna laughed despite her nerves. "When did you get so wise about romance?" "I pay attention," Shanice said smugly. When Christopher knocked on the door at 7, Brianna's breath caught. He was wearing a dark suit with a maroon tie, and he looked handsome and nervous and somehow vulnerable despite his usual calm demeanor. He held out a small bouquet of flowers, not roses but wildflowers from his garden, and typed on his phone, "You look beautiful." "Thank you," Brianna said, taking the flowers. You look very handsome. Shanice popped up between them. Take good care of my sister, Uncle Chris. Christopher's eyes crinkled with amusement. He typed, I promise. We will be back by 11. I'll be good for Mrs. Chen, Shanice promised. Have fun being all romantic and stuff. In the car, as Thomas drove them into the city, Brianna and Christopher sat close but not touching, both acutely aware of the shift happening between them. Christopher reached for his phone and typed, Nervous? Terrified, Brianna admitted. You? Christopher nodded and typed, Same. I have not done this in a very long time. Dated? Christopher nodded. Most women do not want a man who cannot speak. And the ones who do not mind usually want my money more than me. That's sad, Brianna said softly. Their loss. Christopher looked at her, something warm in his eyes. He typed, Not anymore. I found someone who sees me. Really sees me. The restaurant was perfect, intimate and quiet, with soft lighting and excellent food. Christopher had clearly called ahead, because the staff was prepared to communicate with him through notes and knew to give them a corner table with privacy. They talked about everything and nothing. Christopher typed quickly on his phone, and Brianna responded, their conversation flowing easily despite the method. They discovered shared loves of mystery novels and old jazz music. They laughed about Shanice's precocious observations. They talked about their dreams for the foundation, for Shanice's future, for their own lives. Can I ask you something personal? Brianna said over dessert. Christopher nodded. Have you ever considered surgery to restore your voice? Christopher was quiet for a long moment. Then he typed, Yes. Many times. Especially in the early years. But the doctor said success was not guaranteed. There was risk of making things worse. And over time I realized something. My silence taught me to listen. To really hear people. To pay attention to more than words. It made me better at helping people. More thoughtful. More careful. So I chose to keep it. To accept it as part of who I am. I'm glad you did, Brianna said. Your silence is beautiful. It's one of the things I love about you. The words hung in the air. Love. She had said love even in that casual way, and both of them felt the weight of it. Christopher reached across the table and took her hand. He typed with his other hand, I love things about you too. More things than I can type in one sitting. Brianna laughed, squeezing his hand. Maybe you can tell me one at a time. We have time. We have time, Christopher agreed, and the promise in those words made Brianna's heart soar. On the drive home, Brianna rested her head on Christopher's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. It felt natural, right, like coming home. At her door, Christopher walked her to the entrance. He typed, Thank you for tonight. For taking a chance on this. Thank you for planning such a perfect evening, Brianna said. They stood facing each other, aware of the moment, of its potential. Christopher cupped her face gently with one hand, his eyes asking permission. Brianna nodded, and he leaned down, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Brianna was smiling. That was worth waiting for. Christopher's eyes were bright. He typed, First of many? First of many, Brianna confirmed. Inside, Mrs. Chen reported that Shanice had been perfect, had done her homework, had gone to bed without argument. After the older woman left, Brianna checked on her sister and found her awake, reading with a flashlight under the covers. How was it? Shanice whispered. Perfect, Brianna said, sitting on the edge of the bed. He's a good man. I know. Are you happy? I'm very happy, baby. Good. You deserve to be happy, Bri. You take care of everyone. It's nice someone is taking care of you. Brianna hugged her sister tight. When did you get so wise? I was born this way, Shanice said, and Brianna laughed. Across the garden, Christopher stood at his window looking toward the guest house. He had kissed Brianna Jackson. He had held her hand. He had told her in his way that he loved her. And she had said it back in her way. For the first time since his parents died, Christopher felt truly alive. Not just going through motions, not just fulfilling duties, but living, feeling, hoping, loving. He sat at his piano and played late into the night, music that spoke of joy and possibility, of second chances and new beginnings, of love found in unexpected places on snowy nights when a little girl asked a simple question that changed everything. And in the guest house, Brianna fell asleep smiling, thinking about Christopher's gentle kiss, his careful hands, his beautiful silence that said more than words ever could. They were building something real. Something lasting. Something worth everything they had been through to find it. The weeks following their first date felt like spring itself, everything blooming and new and full of promise. Brianna and Christopher continued to take things slowly, mindful of Shanice and wanting to build a foundation of friendship before rushing into anything deeper. But the shift between them was undeniable. The way Christopher's hand would brush hers when they walked through the garden. The way Brianna's face lit up when she saw him. The way they communicated now, not just through typed words but through glances, smiles, small gestures that spoke volumes. At the foundation they maintained professionalism, but everyone could see the change. Maria winked at Brianna one afternoon and said, "Mr. Thornton is smiling more. I think that is because of you." "He's always been a good man," Brianna said, trying to deflect. "Yes, but now he is also a happy man. Different thing entirely." Patrick noticed too. "You're good for him," he told Brianna during a site visit to one of the families they were helping. "He's been lonely for so long. Even with all his philanthropy, he's been isolated. You brought him back to life." "He did the same for me," Brianna said honestly. "We saved each other, I think." The foundation continued to grow under their joint leadership. Brianna proposed a new program focused on education and job training, and Christopher immediately approved the funding. They visited families together, Christopher's silent presence somehow comforting to people in crisis, Brianna's warmth and understanding creating instant connections. One family in particular touched both of them deeply. The Johnsons were a young couple with 3 children, facing eviction after Mr. Johnson lost his job due to a medical emergency. Mrs. Johnson worked 2 part-time jobs but couldn't cover rent alone. Brianna and Christopher arrived at their small apartment to find it clean but sparse, the children's toys carefully organized, dinner cooking on the stove despite their crisis. Mrs. Johnson, a petite woman named Kenji with gentle eyes and a tired smile, welcomed them warmly. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know where else to turn." Christopher nodded and gestured for her to sit. Brianna sat beside her, taking her hand. "Tell us everything. We're here to help." As Kenji shared their story, tears flowing, Christopher typed notes on his tablet. Medical bills from Mr. Johnson's surgery. Missed work. Depleted savings. 3 months behind on rent. Facing eviction in 2 weeks. When she finished, Christopher showed them his tablet. "We will pay your back rent in 3 months forward. We will help Mr. Johnson find a new job through our training program. We will cover your medical bills. You will not lose your home." Kenji broke down completely, sobbing with relief. "Why? Why would you do this for us?" Brianna spoke gently. "Because everyone deserves a chance. Because hard times don't mean you're failing. They just mean you're human. We've all needed help at some point." "I was homeless 4 months ago," Brianna admitted, surprising herself with the confession. "My sister and I were living in a broken-down car. Mr. Thornton found us and gave us a second chance. Now we're doing the same for others. That's how kindness works. It spreads." Christopher reached over and squeezed Brianna's hand, his eyes warm with admiration. The Johnson children, who had been playing quietly in the corner, came over to thank them. The oldest, a girl about Shanice's age named Lily, hugged Brianna tightly. "You're like angels," she whispered. After they left, walking back to Christopher's car, Brianna felt overwhelmed with emotion. Christopher noticed and pulled her into a side hug, something he had started doing more often. He typed on his phone with one hand. "You okay?" "I'm good. Just remembering how scared I was. How hopeless I felt. And now we're on the other side helping others feel less hopeless. It's powerful." Christopher stopped walking and turned to face her. He typed carefully, "You are powerful. Your empathy, your strength, your ability to connect with people. You make the foundation more than just money. You make it personal. Real. Meaningful." "We make it meaningful," Brianna corrected. "Together." Together, Christopher agreed, and the word felt significant, like a promise extending beyond their work. That weekend, Christopher suggested a family outing. He packed a picnic basket and the 3 of them drove to a nearby lake. It was a perfect May day, warm but not hot, with a breeze that carried the scent of flowers. Shanice ran ahead to the water's edge, squealing with delight. Christopher spread out a blanket under a large oak tree, and he and Brianna watched her play. "She's so different from that night in the snow," Brianna said softly. "She was so small, so scared. Now look at her." Christopher typed, "Children are resilient. Give them love and safety and they bloom." "Thank you for loving her," Brianna said, turning to look at him. "She talks about you like your family. Uncle Chris this, Uncle Chris that. You're so important to her." Christopher's expression grew serious. He typed, "She is important to me too. Both of you are. I want you to know that this is not casual for me. What we are building. I am in this for the long term. Brianna's heart beat faster. What does long term mean to you? Christopher thought for a moment, then typed. It means I want you in my life permanently. As more than my employee, more than my neighbor. As my partner. My family. I am not good at saying these things without words, but I hope you understand. I understand, Brianna said, her voice thick with emotion. And I feel the same way. I want to build something real with you. Something that lasts. Christopher set his phone aside and took both her hands in his. They sat like that for a long moment, just looking at each other, the lake sparkling behind them, Shanice's laughter floating on the breeze. Then Shanice ran back to them, dripping wet from wading in the shallow water. Uncle Chris, can you teach me to skip stones? Christopher nodded and stood, offering his hand to pull Brianna up. The three of them walked to the water's edge and Christopher patiently showed Shanice how to find the right flat stones, how to angle her wrist, how to release at the right moment. Brianna watched them together, her heart full. This was what family looked like. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. Built on choice and care and love. After the picnic, they drove home singing along to the radio. Well, Brianna and Shanice sang while Christopher smiled and kept time with his hand on the steering wheel. When they got home, Shanice immediately wanted to show Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, the shells she had collected. Christopher walked Brianna to her door. He typed, "Thank you for today. For every day. I love spending time with you," Brianna said simply. "All the time we spend together, it never feels like enough." Christopher's eyes softened. He leaned down and kissed her, longer than their first kiss, deeper with more certainty. When they pulled apart, Brianna was breathless. "Wow," she whispered. Christopher smiled and typed, "Agreed." Wow. That evening, after Shanice was asleep, Brianna sat at her laptop working on foundation reports. Around 9, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Christopher standing there with a thermos. "Hot chocolate," he typed, holding it up. "You're spoiling me," Brianna said, but she let him in. They sat together on her couch, sharing the hot chocolate, talking about everything and nothing. Christopher told her about his childhood through typed messages, about growing up wealthy but loved, about parents who taught him that privilege meant responsibility. Brianna shared memories of her own parents, the way they had laughed easily and loved deeply, the hole their absence had left. "Do you think they would approve?" Brianna asked. "Your parents, my parents. Of us." Christopher thought for a moment, then typed, "I think they would be happy we found each other. That we are building something good from our grief. That we are honoring them by living fully, loving deeply, helping others." "I hope so," Brianna said, leaning against his shoulder. "I want them to be proud of us." "They are," Christopher typed. "I am sure of it." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that felt natural and easy. Christopher's arm was around her shoulders, and Brianna felt safer than she ever had, more cherished, more seen. "Can I tell you something?" Christopher typed eventually. "Always. I am falling in love with you. Maybe have been since that first night. I know it is fast, know we should take time, but I wanted you to know. No pressure. Just truth." Brianna sat up and looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm falling in love with you too. I tried to tell myself it was too soon, too complicated. But it's there. It's real. And it's the best thing I've felt in so long." Christopher cupped her face with both hands and kissed her deeply, pouring into it everything he couldn't say with words. Love. Commitment. Promise. Hope. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Brianna laughed softly. "We should probably slow down before I completely lose my head." Christopher nodded, smiling. He typed, "Probably wise. Though I do not want to." "Me neither," Brianna admitted. "But we have time. We have so much time." Christopher left around 10, walking slowly back to his house as if reluctant to leave. Brianna watched from her window, her heart full to bursting. She was in love. Really, truly, deeply in love. With a silent billionaire who had stopped for a freezing child and changed 3 lives forever. With a man who communicated more with his careful attention than most people did with endless words. With someone who saw her, valued her, loved her. And the most amazing part? He loved her back. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. They continued their dinner tradition, now understanding it as dates even with Shanice present. Christopher taught Shanice more advanced piano pieces, and her talent continued to blossom. He took them both to concerts, museums, parks, always patient with Shanice's endless energy, always attentive to Brianna's needs and preferences. Brianna met some of Christopher's business associates at a foundation fundraiser, and she was surprised by how warmly they welcomed her. These wealthy, powerful people treated her. as Christopher's equal, asking her opinion on foundation programs, praising her work, making her feel valued beyond her relationship with Christopher. One older businessman, Mr. Patterson, pulled her aside. "Christopher is like a son to me," he said. "I've known him since he was a boy. I've never seen him this happy, this alive. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm just being myself," Brianna said, somewhat overwhelmed. "That's exactly what he needs," Mr. Patterson said. "Someone real. Someone who sees him and not his bank account. You're good for each other. Anyone can see that." The comment made Brianna think. She and Christopher were good for each other. They balanced each other, challenged each other, supported each other. Their past had wounded them both, but together they were healing. One evening, about 6 months after that first snowy night, Brianna was tucking Shanice into bed when her sister asked, "Are you going to marry Uncle Chris?" Brianna's hands stilled on the blanket. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you love him. And he loves you. And we're already kind of like a family. Marriage just makes it official, right? It's more complicated than that, baby." "What? You're happy. He's happy. I'm happy. What's complicated?" Brianna smiled at her sister's simple logic. "Nothing, I guess. But these things take time. We're not rushing." "Okay," Shanice said, yawning. "But when you do get married, can I be in the wedding?" "When we get married," Brianna said, the words feeling natural, "you'll be the most important person there." That night, Brianna lay in bed thinking about Shanice's question. Would Christopher want to marry her? Was that where they were heading? The thought thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. Her phone buzzed with a text from Christopher. "Are you awake?" "Yes. Just thinking." "About what?" "About us. About the future. About how fast everything is moving." There was a pause, then, "Is it moving too fast?" "No. Feels right. That's what scares me. How right it feels." "I understand. It scares me too. But good scared. Like standing at the edge of something beautiful and deciding to jump." Brianna smiled at her phone. "When did you become a poet?" "You inspire me." They texted back and forth for another hour, sharing hopes and fears and dreams. When they finally said goodnight, Brianna felt settled. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. And across the garden, Christopher sat at his piano, his fingers moving over the keys in a melody that spoke of love and trust and the beautiful uncertainty of building something new with someone precious. They were taking their time, but they were also moving forward, step by careful step, toward a future neither of them had dared to imagine on that snowy night 6 months ago. A future built on kindness, hope, and a love that grew deeper with every shared moment, every honest conversation, every gentle touch. They were building trust. And in that trust they were finding home. Are you rooting for Brianna and Christopher? Do you believe that true love can grow from the most unexpected beginnings? If you want to see how their story continues, subscribe and comment your thoughts. Love thrives when we believe in second chances. Summer arrived in full force, bringing long days and warm evenings perfect for sitting in Christopher's garden. The foundation was busier than ever, with new applications coming in daily. Brianna had settled into her role completely, managing staff meetings, reviewing applications, visiting families, and implementing new programs with Christopher's full support. One Wednesday afternoon, Christopher appeared in Brianna's office with an unusual request typed on his tablet. "I want to show you something. Can you take the afternoon off?" "Show me what?" Brianna asked, curious. "A surprise. Please." Brianna laughed and grabbed her bag. "You know I can't resist a mystery." They drove for about an hour outside the city, into a neighborhood Brianna didn't recognize. It was a working-class area, modest homes and small businesses, people sitting on porches in the summer heat. Christopher pulled up to a community center, a renovated building with bright murals on the walls and children playing basketball in the outdoor court. He led Brianna inside, where they were immediately greeted by enthusiastic staff and families. "Mr. Thornton," a young woman exclaimed, coming forward to hug him. "We didn't know you were coming today." Christopher smiled and gestured to Brianna, typing. "This is Brianna Jackson, my partner at the foundation. Brianna, this is the Riverside Community Center. One of our first projects." For the next several hours, Brianna met families whose lives had been transformed by the foundation. She met single mothers who had gone back to school through scholarship programs. She met former addicts who had gotten sober with the help of counseling services the foundation funded. She met children whose families had been saved from homelessness, now thriving in stable housing. Each person had a story, and each story included Christopher. But what struck Brianna most was how little they knew about his wealth. To them, he wasn't a billionaire, just Mr. Thornton, the quiet man who had believed in them when no one else would. One older woman, Miss Grace, pulled Brianna aside. "That man saved my family," she said, her eyes wet. "3 years ago my grandson got sick. Needed expensive treatment we couldn't afford. Mr. Thornton, he paid for everything. Didn't make a fuss about it, just did it. My grandson is healthy now, starting high school. We would have lost him without Mr. Thornton's help." "He's a remarkable person," Brianna said softly. "He is. And you're good for him. I can tell. He's different around you. Lighter. Happier." Another family, the Washingtons, showed Brianna their small business, a bakery the foundation had helped them open after Mr. Washington lost his factory job. "We were ready to give up," Mrs. Washington said, her hands flour-dusted from kneading dough. "But Mr. Thornton, he saw potential in my husband's baking. Gave us the loan to start this place, helped with permits and business planning. Now we employ 4 people from the neighborhood. We're giving back just like he gave to us." As the afternoon wore on, Brianna began to fully understand the scope of Christopher's work. The foundation wasn't just writing checks. It was building communities, creating opportunities, changing lives in permanent, meaningful ways. On the drive home, Brianna was quiet, processing everything she had seen. Christopher glanced at her occasionally, his expression curious. Finally, he pulled over to a scenic overlook and typed, "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that you're even more incredible than I knew," Brianna said. "All those families, Christopher. You changed their lives. And you did it so quietly without publicity or recognition. Just because it was right." Christopher shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. He typed, "IT is just money. It should be used for good. It's not just money. It's attention, time, care. Those people don't just appreciate your financial help. They love you. They feel seen by you. That's so much more valuable than money." Christopher was quiet for a moment, then typed something personal. "My parents taught me that wealth without responsibility is meaningless. That true success is measured not by what you accumulate but by what you give. I try to honor that. Try to make their legacy mean something." "They would be so proud of you," Brianna said, taking his hand. "You've taken their values and multiplied them. You've built something beautiful." "I had lost sight of that," Christopher typed. "Before you and Shanice. The foundation had become mechanical. Just programs and budgets. You reminded me of the human part. The stories. The connections. You made it meaningful again." "We did that together," Brianna insisted. "You showed me that I could be more than just a survivor. You gave me purpose, a way to transform my pain into something useful. We're teaching each other." Christopher lifted her hand and kissed it gently. "Best partnership I have ever had." They sat at the overlook for a while longer, watching the sun begin its descent, talking about dreams for the foundation. Brianna shared ideas about expanding into job creation, maybe helping families start small businesses like the Washington's Bakery. Christopher's eyes lit up as he typed enthusiastically, building on her concepts, suggesting funding models and implementation strategies. When they finally drove home, Brianna felt energized. This work, this mission they shared, it was bigger than both of them. It was a legacy in the making. That evening, Christopher invited Brianna and Shanice for dinner. He had made his famous pasta again, and they ate on his back porch, watching fireflies dance in the garden. Shanice, full of pasta and excited about summer, chattered about her plans. "Mrs. Chin said she'll teach me to garden. And Uncle Chris, you promised to take me to the Science Museum." Christopher nodded and typed to Brianna, "This Saturday. If you are free." "We're free," Brianna confirmed. After dinner, Shanice went to practice piano while Christopher and Brianna cleaned up together. In the comfortable routine of washing and drying dishes, Brianna felt deeply content. This was what she had always wanted. A home, a family, purpose, love. And she had found it all in the most unexpected way. "Can I ask you something personal?" Brianna said as they worked. Christopher nodded, drying his hands to reach for his phone. "Do you ever regret not having children of your own? Shanice isn't biologically yours, but you're so good with her. Have you thought about it?" Christopher was quiet for a long moment. Then he typed slowly, "I had not thought much about it before you. I assumed I would stay alone, that my silence would make family life too complicated. But Shanice has taught me something. Family is not about biology. It is about choice, about love, about showing up. She feels like mine even though she is not. And if you and I continue on this path, if we build a future together, then she would be mine. Officially. Do you? Through choice." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. "You want that? A future where Shanice is officially yours?" Christopher set down his phone and took both her hands. His eyes were intense, serious, full of emotion. He picked up his phone again with one hand and typed, "I want everything with you. Marriage, family, partnership in all ways. I know it has only been 6 months. I know we are taking it slow. But I also know what I feel, what I want. I want you and Shanice in my life permanently. I want to build a real family together." Brianna's tears spilled over. "I want that too. So much. I was afraid to hope for it, afraid it was too good to be true." "It is true," Christopher typed. "It is real. We are real." They stood in his kitchen, holding each other, and Brianna felt the last of her defenses crumble. She had been protecting herself, keeping part of her heart held back just in case. But Christopher had proven himself over and over. He wasn't going anywhere. He was committed, steady, true. From the living room, they heard Shanice playing a complex piece on the piano, her fingers moving confidently over the keys. 6 months ago she had been freezing in the snow, scared and desperate. Now she was thriving, making music, feeling safe and loved. "She's getting really good," Brianna said, wiping her eyes. Christopher nodded and typed, "She has natural talent. With proper training she could be exceptional. I would like to arrange for a professional teacher to work with her. If you approve." "You've already given us so much," Brianna said. "Are you sure?" Christopher's expression was firm. He typed, "She is gifted. Gifts should be nurtured. Besides, I enjoy hearing her play. The house feels alive with her music. Please let me do this." Brianna nodded, accepting graciously. "Okay, thank you." For caring about her dreams. "Not just her dreams," Christopher typed. "Yours too." "What are your dreams, Brianna? Beyond the foundation, beyond taking care of Shanice? What do you want for yourself?" No one had asked Brianna that question in years. She thought about it carefully. "I want to write," she said finally. "I've always loved writing. Poetry, stories. I have journals full of half-finished pieces. I dream about maybe publishing something someday." Christopher's eyes lit up. "Then you should. Write. Finish your pieces. I will help however I can. It feels indulgent. Like I should focus on practical things." Christopher shook his head emphatically. He typed, "Dreams are practical. They keep us alive, keep us growing. Your writing is a gift. Do not hide it because of guilt or fear. The world deserves to hear your voice." Brianna smiled through her tears. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" "Because I listen. Because I pay attention. Because I care." They returned to the living room where Shanice had finished her piece and was flipping through sheet music. "Uncle Chris, can you play something with me? A duet?" Christopher nodded and sat beside her at the piano bench. He placed a piece of music in front of them, something he had clearly prepared in advance. They played together, Shanice's part simpler but complementary to Christopher's more complex melody. Brianna watched from the couch, her heart overflowing. This was family. This beautiful, unlikely, perfect family they had built from desperation and kindness and hope. When the duet ended, Shanice threw her arms around Christopher. "That was so cool. Can we play it for Bree's birthday next month?" Christopher looked at Brianna, surprised. "Your birthday?" "Yeah, but it's not a big deal," Brianna said quickly. Christopher's expression said it was absolutely a big deal. He typed to Shanice, "We will play for her birthday. And we will make it special. What else should we do?" Shanice's face lit up with planning excitement, and Brianna laughed, knowing there was no stopping them now. She didn't mind. After years of barely acknowledging her birthday, of having no one to celebrate with, the thought of Christopher and Shanice making it special filled her with joy. As the evening wound down and Brianna walked Shanice home through the garden, her sister whispered, "Uncle Chris loves you so much, Bree. Like a lot. I can tell." "I love him too," Brianna admitted. "Are you going to marry him?" "Maybe. Someday. If he asks." "He'll ask," Shanice said confidently. "And when he does, you better say yes. Because we're happy with him. Happier than we've been since Mom and Dad died." Brianna hugged her sister close. "You're right. We are happy. Finally." That night, after Shanice was asleep, Brianna pulled out one of her journals and began to write. A poem about second chances, about finding family in unexpected places, about love that speaks through silence. The words flowed easily, and for the first time in years she didn't stop to doubt or edit. She just wrote, letting her truth pour onto the page. When she finished, she took a photo of the poem and sent it to Christopher with the message, "You inspired this. Thank you for believing in my dreams." His reply came quickly, "It's beautiful. Like you. Keep writing. The world needs your words." Brianna fell asleep smiling, thinking about the Riverside Community Center and all the families Christopher had helped. Thinking about how she was now part of that mission, part of that legacy. Thinking about how one decision to help a freezing child had created ripples that touched so many lives. And across the garden, Christopher sat at his desk, typing notes for an expansion of the Foundation's programs. But he stopped every few minutes to reread Brianna's poem, marveling at her talent, at her heart, at the gift of having her in his life. They were building something beautiful. A mission that mattered. A love that lasted. A family that chose each other every day. And the best part? They were just beginning. July brought heat waves and lazy afternoons. The Foundation's summer programs were in full swing, with day camps for children and job training workshops for adults. Brianna thrived in the busy season, her natural warmth and organizational skills making her invaluable. But she also noticed something changing. Christopher was around more, finding excuses to drop by her office, suggesting lunch together, orchestrating moments alone even in the busy office environment. The attraction between them, always present, was growing stronger, harder to ignore. One Friday afternoon, Christopher appeared in her office doorway looking unusually casual in jeans and a green polo shirt. He typed, "Pack up. We are taking the afternoon off." "I have 3 meetings," Brianna protested. "Maria will handle them." "I already asked." "Come on. Shanice is with Mrs. Chen until dinner. We have a few hours to ourselves." Brianna felt her pulse quicken. "Just us." "Just us," Christopher confirmed. They drove to a nearby park, one of Christopher's favorite places. He led her to a secluded spot by a pond, where he had clearly arranged for a blanket and picnic basket to be waiting. "You planned this?" Brianna said, impressed. Christopher smiled and typed, "I wanted time with you. Just you. We are always with Shanice or at work. Both are wonderful, but sometimes I want you to myself." They sat on the blanket, eating sandwiches and fruit, talking about everything except work. Christopher asked about her childhood, her dreams before her parents died, her favorite books and movies. Brianna asked about his travels, his experiences running his company, what he would do if money were no object. "I'd probably still run the Foundation," Brianna admitted. "It's not about money for me. It's about purpose. About helping people who were in my position." Christopher's eyes were warm. He typed, "I knew you were special from the beginning. Your heart is pure. You do not help people because you have to. You do it because you cannot imagine not helping. Is that really so special? Shouldn't everyone care about others? They should, but they do not. You do. That makes you rare. Precious." They were sitting close now, shoulders touching, and Brianna could feel the heat radiating from Christopher's body. He reached out and tucked a loose curl behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "Christopher," Brianna whispered, her breath catching. He cupped her face with both hands and kissed her, slowly at first, then deeper as she responded. It was different from their previous kisses, more urgent, more intense. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Christopher's eyes were dark with emotion. He typed with shaking hands, "I am in love with you. Completely. Entirely. I think about you constantly. Dream about you. You have become essential to my life." "I love you too," Brianna said, her voice thick. "So much it scares me sometimes. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for this to be too good to be true." "It is real," Christopher typed. "I promise you. I am not going anywhere. I want to build a life with you." "What does that look like to you?" Brianna asked. "A life together?" Christopher thought carefully, then typed, "It looks like this. You and me working side by side at the Foundation. Shanice growing up with both of us. Family dinners and lazy Sundays and shared dreams. Eventually marriage. A permanent commitment. Maybe more children if you want them. A life built on partnership and love and mutual respect." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. "You've thought about this. Really thought about it." "Every day," Christopher admitted. "Since the moment I met you. I know it is fast, but when you know, you know. I know you are the one I want to spend my life with." "I know it too," Brianna whispered. "I was just afraid to say it out loud." "Say it now," Christopher typed. "Please." "I want to spend my life with you," Brianna said clearly. "I want to marry you someday. I want to build a family with you. I want to grow old with you, doing this work we both love, raising Shanice together, maybe having more children. I want everything with you." Christopher pulled her close, holding her tight against his chest. She could feel his heart beating rapidly, could feel his arms trembling slightly. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. He typed, "I will make you so happy. I promise." I will spend every day showing you how much I love you. You already make me happy, Brianna said. Every day. Just by being you. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the pond, talking about their future in concrete terms. When they wanted to get married, how to tell Shanice whether to have a big wedding or something small. It felt right, natural, like planning something inevitable. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Christopher typed, "There is something I want to give you. But not yet. Soon. A physical symbol of my commitment. Will you wait for it?" "A ring?" Brianna asked, her heart racing. Christopher nodded. "Not just any ring. The perfect one. I want to do this right. Give you the proposal you deserve." "I don't need anything fancy," Brianna said. "I just need you." "I know. But I want to make it special. Please be patient with me." "I can wait," Brianna promised. "I'll wait as long as you need." As they drove home in comfortable silence, hands clasped on the console between them, Brianna felt a sense of peace settle over her. This was right. Christopher was right. Their future together was right. When they picked up Shanice from Mrs. Chen's house, her sister took one look at them and grinned. "You two look happy. Really happy." "We are," Brianna confirmed, exchanging a glance with Christopher. "Good. Because you deserve to be happy, both of you." That night, after putting Shanice to bed, Brianna stood at her window watching the lights in Christopher's house. Her phone buzzed with a text from him. "I love you. Thank you for today. For every day. For being patient with me as I figure out how to show you how much you mean to me." Brianna typed back, "I love you too. You don't have to figure anything out. You already show me every day in 1,000 small ways. Still, I want the big ways too. Soon. I'll be here. Whenever you're ready." Over the next few weeks, Brianna noticed Christopher was gone more often, taking mysterious trips into the city. He would come back looking satisfied but wouldn't explain where he'd been. She didn't push, trusting that whatever he was planning would be worth the wait. Meanwhile, their relationship continued to deepen. They spent every evening together, either at his house or hers, cooking dinner, helping Shanice with homework, watching movies, talking about their days. It felt natural, like they had been doing it for years rather than months. The foundation held its annual summer fundraiser, a gala where donors and families gathered to celebrate the year's accomplishments. Brianna wore a beautiful red dress that Christopher had surprised her with, and she felt elegant and confident as she worked the room, sharing stories of the families they had helped. Christopher stayed by her side most of the evening, his hand on the small of her back, his eyes full of pride. Several major donors commented on what a great team they made, how the foundation had never been stronger. Mr. Patterson pulled them both aside. "You two should make this partnership permanent," he said with a knowing wink. "In all ways." Christopher's eyes met Brianna's and she saw the promise there. So, one evening in late August, Christopher asked Brianna to dress nicely for dinner. "Something special?" she typed to him. "Very special. Just trust me." Brianna wore a navy blue dress and spent extra time on her hair and makeup. Shanice helped, offering commentary and advice with the confidence of someone much older than 8. "You look like a movie star, Bri," Shanice said. "Uncle Chris is going to flip out." When Christopher arrived to pick her up, his reaction confirmed Shanice's prediction. His eyes widened and he typed quickly, "You look stunning. Absolutely stunning." "Thank you. You look very handsome yourself." He was wearing a dark suit with a blue tie that matched her dress perfectly. Brianna realized he must have somehow known what she would wear. They drove to an upscale restaurant on the waterfront, one Brianna had only read about in magazines. The maitre d' greeted Christopher warmly and led them to a private table on the balcony overlooking the water. The sunset painted everything in golden light. "Christopher, this is too much," Brianna whispered. He shook his head and typed, "Nothing is too much for you. Tonight is important. Please just enjoy it." Dinner was exquisite, course after course of beautifully prepared food. But Brianna barely tasted it, too aware of Christopher's nervous energy, the way he kept checking his watch, the intensity in his eyes every time he looked at her. After dessert, Christopher stood and offered his hand. He led her to the railing overlooking the water, the city lights beginning to twinkle as darkness fell. He pulled out his phone and typed a long message, then handed it to her. "Brianna, 7 months ago, your sister asked me a simple question. She asked if she could slip under my coat. In that moment, my entire life changed. You walked into my world, strong and scared and beautiful, and you turned everything I knew upside down. You showed me what it means to be truly brave. To face impossible odds and keep fighting. To love fiercely even when life tries to break you. You showed me that my silence was not a weakness but a strength. That I could communicate love without words. You made my house a home. You made my work meaningful. You made me want to be better, do more, love deeper. You and Shanice gave me a family I never thought I would have. I love you, Brianna Jackson. I love your fierce heart, your brilliant mind, your generous spirit. I love the way you care for Shanice, the way you care for every family we help. I love your strength and your vulnerability, your laughter and your tears. I want to spend the rest of my life loving you, supporting you, building dreams with you. I want to make you happy every single day. I want to be your partner in all things. Brianna looked up from the phone, tears streaming down her face. Christopher was kneeling now, a small velvet box in his hands. He opened it to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the blue exactly the shade of the dress she was wearing, the dress he had chosen. He typed with one hand, the other holding the box. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Brianna whispered, then louder, "Yes. Of course yes." Christopher's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply as the restaurant staff and other diners applauded from inside. When they finally pulled apart, Brianna was laughing and crying at the same time. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I can't believe this is real." "It is real," Christopher typed. "You are going to be my wife. And you're going to be my husband. Shanice's stepfather. Our family." "Our family," Christopher agreed, and the words felt like a vow. They stayed at the restaurant for another hour, Christopher explaining through typed messages how he had spent weeks designing the ring, making sure the sapphire matched her favorite color, ensuring everything was perfect. He had wanted to propose on her birthday, but the ring wasn't ready yet, so he had waited until tonight, when everything could be exactly right. "I would have said yes with a ring from a vending machine," Brianna said. "All I need is you." "I know. But I wanted to give you something beautiful. Something worthy of you." On the drive home, Brianna couldn't stop looking at the ring on her finger, couldn't stop smiling. She was engaged. She was going to marry Christopher Thornton. The silent billionaire who had saved her life was going to be her husband. When they arrived home, they found Mrs. Chin and Shanice waiting on the porch, both grinning widely. "Well?" Shanice demanded. "Did you ask her? Did she say yes?" Christopher nodded, and Shanice squealed, launching herself at both of them. "I knew it. I knew you were going to propose. Mrs. Chin and I have been waiting for hours." "You knew?" Brianna asked, laughing. "Uncle Chris asked my permission last week," Shanice said proudly. "He wanted to make sure I was okay with him marrying you. I told him I was more than okay. I told him to hurry up and do it already." Christopher typed to Shanice, "Thank you for your blessing. It was important to me." "You're going to be my real uncle now," Shanice said. "My real family. Forever." "Forever," Christopher confirmed, hugging her tight. Mrs. Chin congratulated them warmly. "I'm so happy for you all. You are a beautiful family." After Mrs. Chin left and Shanice finally went to bed, after numerous hugs and excited chatter about wedding plans, Brianna and Christopher sat together on her couch, her head on his shoulder, both staring at the ring on her finger. "I can't believe this is my life now," Brianna said softly. 7 months ago, I was sleeping in a car with no hope. Now I'm engaged to the most wonderful man I've ever met, working a job I love, watching Shanice thrive. It feels like a dream." "It is not a dream," Christopher typed. "It is real. And it is only the beginning. We have so much more to build together." "When do you want to get married?" Brianna asked. Christopher thought for a moment, then typed, "Whenever you want. I would marry you tomorrow if I could. But I know these things take planning. So I will wait. Patiently. For as long as you need. What if we did it soon? Like in a few months? I don't want a huge wedding. Just something intimate with the people we love." Christopher's eyes lit up. He typed, "That sounds perfect. Simple. Meaningful. Just." They talked late into the night, making tentative plans. A small ceremony in Christopher's garden. Close friends and foundation staff. Shanice as the flower girl and junior bridesmaid. Something beautiful but not ostentatious, focused on love and commitment rather than spectacle. When Christopher finally left, walking slowly back to his house through the garden, Brianna watched from her window. Her fiancé. That word felt foreign and wonderful on her tongue. She thought about that snowy night 7 months ago, about Shanice's desperate whisper, about Christopher's immediate and unhesitating help. She thought about how kindness had created this ripple effect, how one decision to help had transformed 3 lives completely. And she thought about the future they would build together. A marriage based on mutual respect and deep love. A family that chose each other every day. A mission to help others the way they had been helped. It was more than she had ever dreamed. More than she had thought possible. And it was real. Beautifully, perfectly real. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the beginning of the busy fall season at the foundation. Brianna and Christopher settled into their new reality as an engaged couple, though they kept the engagement mostly private for now, wanting to announce it properly at an upcoming foundation event. But their happiness was about to face its first real test. One Monday morning, Brianna arrived at the office to find Maria looking worried. "We have a problem," she said, leading Brianna into the conference room where Christopher and Patrick were already waiting. Christopher's expression was serious as he typed. "We just received notice that one of our major funding sources is pulling out. Senator Crawford's foundation. They provide 30% of our annual budget." "What? Why?" Brianna asked, her stomach dropping. Patrick explained, "Senator Crawford is facing a scandal. His foundation is under investigation for misuse of funds. He's shutting it down and pulling all pending commitments to avoid further scrutiny. We're not the only organization affected, but we're one of the biggest." Brianna felt panic rising. 30% of our budget. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have programs running, families depending on us. What are we going to do? Christopher typed calmly, though Brianna could see tension in his shoulders. "We will figure it out. First, let us assess the immediate impact. Which programs are at risk?" They spent the morning going through budgets and programs. The scholarship fund was in danger. The housing assistance program would have to be scaled back. Several families in transition might lose support. Brianna felt sick thinking about the Johnsons and other families they had promised to help. "We can't abandon them," she said firmly. "We made commitments. These people trusted us." Christopher nodded emphatically. "I agree. We will not break our promises. But we need to be strategic. We need a plan." Over the next several days, Brianna threw herself into finding solutions. She reached out to other donors, wrote grant applications, cut unnecessary expenses. She worked late every night, driven by determination not to let the families down. Christopher matched her effort, calling in favors from business associates, committing more of his personal wealth to cover gaps. But even his resources had limits when it came to sustainable funding. One evening, about a week into the crisis, Christopher found Brianna still at her desk at 9 p.m., surrounded by paperwork and empty coffee cups. Her eyes were red from strain and she looked exhausted. He typed, "Go home. Get rest. You are running yourself into the ground." "I can't," Brianna said, her voice tight. "I have 3 more grant applications to finish. The deadline is tomorrow. If we can get just 2 of these, we'll be okay." Christopher sat beside her and gently closed her laptop. He typed, "These will still be here in the morning. You need sleep. You need to take care of yourself. People are depending on us," Brianna said, tears welling up. "The Johnsons, the Washingtons, Miss Grace, all those families. What if we can't help them? What if we have to tell them we're pulling funding?" Christopher took her hands in his. He typed, "We will not abandon anyone. I promise. But we cannot help them if we burn ourselves out. Please come home. Eat dinner. Sleep. We will tackle this together in the morning." Brianna wanted to argue, but she was so tired. She nodded and let Christopher drive her home. At the guest house, they found Shanice already asleep. Mrs. Chin had fed her and put her to bed. Christopher ordered food to be delivered and sat with Brianna while she ate, his presence calm and reassuring. "I'm scared," Brianna admitted. "What if I can't fix this? What if my first real crisis as manager ends in failure?" Christopher typed carefully, "This is not your crisis alone. It is ours. We face it together. And failure is not losing funding. Failure is giving up on people. We are not giving up." "How are you so calm?" Christopher smiled slightly. "Years of business crises. You learn that panic does not help. Clear thinking and steady action do. We have each other, we have resources, and we have determination. That is enough." "What if it's not?" Brianna whispered. "Then we will figure out another way. But stop borrowing worry from tomorrow. Tonight, just rest." Over the next 2 weeks, Brianna and Christopher worked tirelessly. They divided responsibilities, Christopher focusing on large donors while Brianna handled grant applications and program restructuring. Maria managed the budget with impressive efficiency, finding savings without cutting services. Patrick worked with families to ensure smooth transitions if programs needed to be modified. The foundation staff rallied around them, everyone putting in extra hours, everyone committed to protecting the families they served. Brianna was touched by their dedication, by how much everyone cared about the mission. One breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mr. Patterson, the businessman who had commented on their relationship at the fundraiser, called Christopher with an offer. His company would commit to a 3-year funding partnership, enough to cover most of what they had lost from Senator Crawford's foundation. Christopher was typing to Brianna when the call came through, and his face lit up. He showed her the email confirming Patterson's commitment. "We have the funding." Patterson came through. Brianna burst into tears of relief. "Really? We're going to be okay?" Christopher nodded, pulling her into his arms. "We are going to be okay." But even with Patterson's commitment, they were still short. They needed one more major donor or several smaller ones to fully fund all their programs. Brianna redoubled her grant-writing efforts, and 3 days before the month ended, they received word that 2 of her applications had been approved. The foundation was saved. Every program could continue. Every family would keep their support. Brianna called an all-staff meeting to share the news, and there were tears and cheers all around. Maria hugged her tightly. "You did it. You saved us." "We all did it," Brianna corrected. "Every single person here fought for this." That evening, Christopher took Brianna and Shanice out for a celebration dinner. Shanice had been wonderful during the crisis, understanding when her sister worked late, being patient when plans changed, offering encouragement in her innocent, heartfelt way. "Are things okay now?" Shanice asked over dessert. "Can we go back to normal?" "Things are okay," Brianna confirmed. "Better than okay. We learned how to handle a crisis. We proved we can face hard things together." Christopher typed to Shanice, "You were very brave during this time. Very patient. Thank you for understanding." "That's what families do," Shanice said simply. "They help each other through hard times." Later that night, after Shanice was in bed, Christopher and Brianna sat in her living room. Brianna was finally relaxed, the tension of the past weeks melting away. "I'm sorry I almost fell apart," she said quietly. "I should have been stronger." Christopher shook his head firmly. He typed, "You were incredibly strong. You fought for people who needed you. You worked yourself to exhaustion for them. That is true strength. Asking for help, accepting support, that is also strength. You did both." "I couldn't have done this without you," Brianna said. "Your calm, your steady presence, your faith that we would find a way. You kept me grounded." "That is what partners do," Christopher typed. "We balance each other. You bring passion and heart. I bring patience and strategy. Together we are stronger than either of us alone." "I like being partners with you," Brianna said, moving closer to him on the couch. "In work and in life." Christopher wrapped his arm around her. "Me too. This crisis showed me something important. That we can face anything together. That our relationship is strong enough to handle stress and pressure. That we work well together even when things are hard." "Are you having second thoughts about marrying me?" Brianna asked, only half joking. Christopher's eyes widened in alarm. He typed quickly, "Absolutely not. The opposite. This crisis made me more certain. You are the person I want by my side through every challenge. You are my partner in the truest sense." Brianna kissed him softly. "Good. Because you're stuck with me now." "Happily stuck," Christopher typed, smiling. The next week, they held a celebration event for foundation staff and donors, thanking everyone who had helped them through the crisis. It was also, they decided, the perfect time to announce their engagement. Christopher stood at the front of the room with Brianna beside him. He had prepared a statement, which Maria read aloud on his behalf. "7 months ago, I met a woman and her sister who changed my life. They reminded me why this foundation exists, why our work matters. Brianna Jackson came to us in need, and she has become so much more than an employee. She is my partner, my inspiration, and my best friend. Tonight, I am happy to announce that she has agreed to become my wife." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Staff members rushed forward to congratulate them, to admire Brianna's ring, to express joy at the news. Mr. Patterson shook Christopher's hand firmly. "About time you made it official. You two belong together." Mrs. Washington from the bakery hugged Brianna tight. "You deserve every happiness, dear. You have given so much to others. It is wonderful to see you receive something beautiful in return." As the party continued, Brianna found herself surrounded by people who cared about her, who celebrated her happiness. It was overwhelming in the best way. Later, as they were cleaning up, Shanice tugged on Christopher's sleeve. "Uncle Chris, can I call you Dad after you marry Bree? Or is that weird?" Christopher's eyes filled with tears. He knelt down to Shanice's level and typed on his phone, "That would make me the happiest man in the world. I would be honored to be your dad." Shanice threw her arms around his neck. "Good. Because you're already kind of like my dad anyway. This just makes it official." Brianna watched them, her heart overflowing. This was what family looked like. This was what love looked like. Choosing each other through good times and bad, standing together through crises, celebrating victories as a team. The funding crisis had been terrifying, but it had also been valuable. It had tested their relationship and proven it strong. It had shown them they could face anything together. It had solidified their commitment to each other and to the work they shared. As they drove home that night, Shanice asleep in the back seat, Christopher reached over and took Brianna's hand. She squeezed back, both of them silent but connected, partners in every sense of the word. The worst was behind them. The best was yet to come. And they would face it all together, with hope, kindness, and love always leading the way. October brought crisp air and brilliant fall colors to the city. The foundation had stabilized after the funding crisis, and Brianna and Christopher were busy planning their wedding. They had set a date for early November, wanting something soon and intimate rather than elaborate and distant. Wedding preparations were surprisingly simple. They would marry in Christopher's garden, which would be decorated with fall flowers and warm lights. Only 50 guests, mostly foundation staff, a few of Christopher's business associates, and the families they had helped most closely. Shanice would be the flower girl and junior bridesmaid, a role she took very seriously. One Saturday afternoon, Brianna was working on her vows in the guest house when Christopher appeared at her door looking excited. He typed, "I have something to show you. Can you come to my house? Right now. Now, please. I promise it will be worth it." Intrigued, Brianna followed him through the garden to his house. He led her upstairs to a room she had never been in at the end of the hallway. When he opened the door, Brianna gasped. It was an office but completely renovated. There was a beautiful desk by the window, shelves lined with books and journals, a comfortable reading chair, and best of all, a wall of framed photos. Photos of her and Shanice, of their journey from that first snowy night to now. Christopher typed, "This is your writing room. A place for you to create, to work on your poetry and stories. I know you have been using the kitchen table, and I wanted you to have a real space. A room of your own." Brianna walked around the room slowly, touching the books Christopher had carefully selected, all authors she loved. She opened one of the journals and found it filled with blank pages waiting for her words. "Christopher, this is too much," she whispered. Christopher shook his head. He typed, "It is not too much. Your writing is important. Your voice matters. This room is my way of saying I believe in your talent, your dreams. After we are married, this house will be yours too. But this room is yours alone. Your sanctuary." Brianna turned to him with tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. You existed," Christopher typed simply. "You were brave enough to accept help. You were open enough to love again. You chose me just as I chose you. That is enough." She crossed the room and kissed him deeply, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. When they pulled apart, she said, "I'm going to write something amazing in this room. I promise. I know you will. I cannot wait to read it." That evening, as they prepared dinner together in Christopher's kitchen while Shanice set the table, Brianna felt overwhelmed with contentment. This was her life now. This beautiful, unexpected, precious life. "Uncle Chris, will you teach me to cook?" Shanice asked. "I want to be able to make dinner for you and Bree sometimes." Christopher nodded enthusiastically and typed, "We start tomorrow. Lesson 1, Scrambled Eggs." Over the following weeks, life settled into a joyful rhythm. Brianna spent her mornings at the foundation, her afternoons often in her new writing room, and her evenings with Christopher and Shanice. She was making real progress on a collection of poems about resilience, love, and second chances. The wedding plans came together easily. Mrs. Chin was helping with decorations. Maria was coordinating logistics. Patrick was serving as Christopher's best man, which touched Christopher deeply. And Shanice had designed the invitations, her artwork featured on each one. 2 weeks before the wedding, Christopher had another surprise. He took Brianna to a lawyer's office, where papers were waiting. "What is this?" Brianna asked, confused. The lawyer explained, "Mr. Thornton is formally adopting Shanice as his daughter. With your permission, of course. This way, when you marry, Shanice will legally be his child. She'll have his name if she wants it, his inheritance rights, everything." Brianna looked at Christopher, stunned. "You want to adopt her?" Christopher nodded firmly. He typed, "I want to be her father in every way. Legally, emotionally, permanently. I love her. I want her to know she is mine, that I will always take care of her. If you agree. Of course I agree, Brianna said through tears. This is the most beautiful gift you could give us. They signed the papers that day, making Christopher legally Shanice's guardian alongside Brianna. When they told Shanice that evening, she cried happy tears and insisted on calling him Dad immediately. Can I be Shanice Jackson Thornton? She asked. Keep both names? Because Bree and I are Jacksons, but now we're Thorntons too. Christopher smiled and typed. Any name you want. You decide. Jackson Thornton, Shanice decided. Both families together. That's perfect. The adoption was finalized quickly, and 3 days before the wedding, they had a small ceremony at the courthouse to make it official. Shanice wore her best dress and carried a bouquet. When the judge declared Christopher legally her father, she hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. I have a dad again, she whispered. A real dad who chose me. Christopher held her close, his own eyes wet. He typed to the judge, "Thank you for making my family official." As they left the courthouse, Brianna took a family photo. Christopher and Shanice holding hands, both smiling brighter than the autumn sun. She posted it to social media with the caption, "Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who stay, who choose to love you." Today became official what our hearts already knew. The response was overwhelming. Messages of congratulations from foundation families, from staff, from people whose lives had been touched by Christopher's quiet generosity. Everyone celebrating this unexpected family built from kindness and hope. The night before the wedding, Brianna couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about how different her life was from a year ago. How she had gone from desperate and homeless to engaged and purposeful. How she had gone from feeling worthless to feeling cherished. How one snowy night had changed absolutely everything. She pulled out her journal and wrote a letter to Christopher, planning to give it to him on their wedding day. My love, a year ago I was broken. I thought I had failed at everything that mattered. I thought I had lost my chance at happiness. I was wrong. You didn't just save us that night in the snow. You saw us. You saw through my fear and exhaustion and pride to the person underneath. You saw someone worth helping, worth believing in, worth loving. You gave me more than shelter and a job. You gave me back my dignity. You gave me purpose. You gave me a family. You gave me a future I couldn't have imagined. But most of all, you gave me yourself. Your patience, your wisdom, your quiet strength. Your beautiful silence that speaks more than words ever could. Your generous heart that helps without expectation. Your steady love that makes me feel safe enough to dream again. Tomorrow I become your wife. Shanice becomes your daughter officially. We become a family in the eyes of the law and the world. But in my heart, we have been family since that first night. Since you opened your coat and let a freezing child inside. Since you looked at me with kindness instead of judgment. Since you chose us. I promise to love you with the same generosity you have shown me. I promise to be your partner in all things. I promise to build a life with you that honors everything we have been through to get here. I promise to never take for granted the gift of your love. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving us so completely. Tomorrow and always, Brianna. She sealed the letter in an envelope and placed it on her nightstand, ready to give to Christopher before the ceremony. Across the garden, Christopher was also awake, sitting at his piano. He played softly, not wanting to wake Shanice but needing to express the emotions swirling inside him. Tomorrow he would marry Brianna. Tomorrow he would officially become a husband and father. Tomorrow his family would be complete. He thought about his parents, wishing they could be there to see this. But he felt their presence in the work he did, in the values he lived by, in the family he had built. They would be proud, he thought. They would love Brianna and Shanice as much as he did. He played late into the night, his music speaking what his voice could not. Love, gratitude, hope, joy, promise. And in both houses, as sleep finally came, the same thought. Tomorrow. Tomorrow everything becomes official. Tomorrow we begin the rest of our lives. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and perfect. The November sky brilliant blue, the air crisp but not cold. Christopher's garden had been transformed overnight by the decorating team. Fall flowers in shades of burgundy, gold, and orange filled every corner. White chairs were arranged in neat rows facing an arch covered in ivy and roses. Strings of warm lights crisscrossed overhead, ready to glow as evening came. Brianna woke early, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. Today she was marrying Christopher Thornton. Today she was becoming a wife, and Shanice was officially becoming part of a complete family. Mrs. Chin arrived at 8 to help with preparations, bringing breakfast pastries and endless enthusiasm. "This is the happiest day," she kept saying. "Such a beautiful family you are making." Shanice was already dressed in her flower girl outfit, a burgundy velvet dress with a full skirt, spinning around the living room. "Bree, hurry up. We can't be late to your own wedding." "The wedding isn't until 4, Brianna laughed. "We have plenty of time." But she understood Shanice's excitement. She felt it too, this bubbling joy that made sitting still impossible. At noon, Maria and Jennifer from the foundation arrived to help Brianna get ready. They had insisted on being her bridesmaids, and Brianna was grateful for their presence. Maria did her hair in an elegant updo with loose curls framing her face. Jennifer helped with makeup, keeping it natural but polished. Then came the dress. Brianna had chosen a simple but elegant gown in ivory, with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. When she put it on and looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "You look like a queen," Shanice breathed. "Dad is going to cry when he sees you." The word dad still made Brianna's heart swell. Christopher was officially Shanice's father now, and hearing her daughter call him that felt right in a way nothing else ever had. "Are you ready?" Maria asked gently. "It's almost time." Brianna nodded, clutching the letter she had written for Christopher. "I'm ready. More ready than I've ever been for anything." They walked through the garden path to Christopher's house, where the ceremony would take place in the backyard. Guests were already arriving, settling into their seats. Brianna caught glimpses of familiar faces: Patrick and his family, Mr. Patterson and his wife, the Johnsons, and Washington's, Miss Grace and her grandson, Kenji, and her husband, dozens of families the foundation had helped. Christopher had insisted on inviting them all. "They are part of our story," he had typed. "They should be part of this day." Brianna waited in Christopher's study, peeking out the window at the gathering crowd. She saw Christopher standing near the arch with Patrick, looking handsome and nervous in his charcoal suit with a burgundy tie. He kept running his hand through his hair, a habit he had when anxious. "He's nervous," Brianna said, smiling. "So are you," Maria pointed out, gesturing to Brianna's shaking hands. "Good nervous," Brianna clarified. "The best kind." At exactly 4 o'clock, the music began. A string quartet played softly as Shanice walked down the aisle, carefully dropping rose petals, her face serious with concentration. When she reached the front, she gave Christopher a thumbs up and he grinned. Then Maria and Jennifer walked down together, taking their places. And finally, the music swelled into the processional. Brianna stepped out of the house and began her walk down the aisle, no one to give her away because she was giving herself, choosing this, choosing Christopher, choosing this life. When Christopher saw her, his hand went to his heart. Even from a distance, Brianna could see tears in his eyes. She felt her own tears start to fall as she walked toward him, toward their future. When she reached him, Christopher reached out and took her hands. He was trembling slightly, but his grip was firm. He looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and Brianna felt beautiful, cherished, loved beyond measure. The officiant, a friend of Christopher's who understood his silence and had prepared accordingly, began the ceremony. "We are gathered here today to witness the joining of two souls who have found each other against all odds." Christopher and Brianna's story is one of kindness meeting need, of hope meeting despair, of love growing from the most unexpected beginning. He spoke about their journey, about the snowy night that had brought them together, about the family they had built. Several guests wiped their eyes, moved by the story. "Christopher has prepared his vows in writing," the officiant said. "He has asked that Brianna read them aloud as his voice comes through her now, as they will speak for each other in marriage." Christopher handed Brianna a folded paper, his hands shaking. She opened it and began to read, her voice clear despite her tears. "Brianna, you walked into my life when I thought I knew everything about who I was and what I wanted. You proved me wrong in the best possible way. You showed me that I was lonely even though I did not know it. You showed me that my life had room for so much more love than I had imagined. You and Shanice filled spaces in my heart I did not know were empty. You made me whole. Today I promise to love you with everything I am. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams, to celebrate your victories, to comfort you in struggles. I promise to be the best father I can be to Shanice, to love her as my own because she is my own. I promise to face every day with gratitude for the gift of your presence in my life. I promise to never stop showing you in my way how much you mean to me. I may not have words, but I have actions, attention, and endless love. All of it is yours. Today and always." By the time Brianna finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. She looked up at Christopher, who was crying openly now, and she smiled through her own tears. "My turn," she said softly, then addressed Christopher directly. Christopher, a year ago I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left to offer the world, nothing left to hope for. You proved me wrong. You saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You gave me not just material help but something far more important. You gave me belief. Belief that I could be more than just a survivor. Belief that I deserved love and happiness and purpose. You gave me back my dreams and then helped me build new ones. Today I promise to love you with the same generosity you have shown me. I promise to be your voice when you need one, your silence when you need peace. I promise to build a life with you that matters, that helps people, that spreads the kindness you showed us to everyone we meet. I promise to love Shanice alongside you, to raise her with values that honor both our parents, to give her the stable, loving home we both want for her. I promise to grow old with you, to face every challenge together, to celebrate every joy as a team. You are my partner, my love, my home. I choose you today and every day for the rest of my life. Christopher reached up and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks, then touched his own heart and pointed to her. I love you, the gesture said clearly. I love you too, Brianna whispered. The officiant smiled. Christopher, do you take Brianna to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward? Christopher nodded emphatically, squeezing Brianna's hands. And Brianna, do you take Christopher to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward? I do, Brianna said clearly. With all my heart. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Christopher, you may kiss your bride. Christopher cupped Brianna's face tenderly and kissed her as the audience erupted in applause and cheers. It was a gentle kiss, full of promise and love, and when they pulled apart, both were smiling so wide their faces hurt. The officiant presented them, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Christopher and Brianna Thornton. More cheers, more applause. Shanice ran up to join them and Christopher scooped her up, the three of them embracing as the photos were taken. A family. Complete and official and perfect in their own unique way. The reception was held in Christopher's backyard, tables arranged around the garden, food provided by the Washington's Bakery and several other restaurants owned by families the foundation had helped. It was a true community celebration, everyone contributing, everyone joyful. Brianna and Christopher made their rounds, greeting guests, accepting congratulations. Every person had something kind to say, some story about how the foundation or Christopher or Brianna had helped them. When it came time for the first dance, Christopher led Brianna to the center of the garden. The music began, a slow jazz ballad, and they swayed together, Christopher's arms around her waist, Brianna's arms around his neck. We did it, Brianna whispered. We're married. Christopher pulled back slightly and typed one-handed on his phone while still holding her. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Brianna corrected. The best was stopping for Shanice that night. Christopher smiled and nodded. All of it. Stopping. Helping. Falling in love. All the best decisions. They danced in comfortable silence, surrounded by people who loved them, under the lights strung through the garden, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Later, after dinner and toasts and cake cutting, after Shanice had fallen asleep on Mrs. Chen's lap and been carried inside to rest, Christopher and Brianna stood at the edge of the garden looking at their guests. Look at them, Brianna said softly. All these people we've helped, all gathered together to celebrate with us. This is what it's all about, isn't it? Connection. Community. Helping each other. Christopher nodded and typed. This is what love looks like when it ripples outward. We helped them. They helped us. Now we all help each other. This is how the world should work. We're going to keep doing this, Brianna said. Keep growing the foundation, keep helping families, keep spreading this kindness. Christopher turned to face her fully. He typed, we are going to do more than that. We are going to build a life full of love and purpose and joy. We are going to raise Shanice to be kind and strong and generous. We are going to make every day count. And we are going to do it all together. Together, Brianna agreed, kissing him softly. Always together. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, each person hugged the newlyweds, thanked them for sharing this day, expressed hope for their future. Mr. Patterson pulled Christopher aside one last time. Your parents would be so proud of you, son. You took their legacy and made it something even more beautiful. And you found love that matches your generous heart. This is everything they wanted for you. Christopher's eyes welled up. He typed, thank you for being here. For believing in me all these years. Always have, always will. Finally, around midnight, the last guest left. Christopher, Brianna, and a still sleeping Shanice were alone in the quiet garden, lights twinkling overhead. Best day of my life, Brianna said, leaning against Christopher's shoulder. He kissed the top of her head and typed, "First of many." They carried Shanice inside and tucked her into bed in what would now be her permanent room in Christopher's house, their house, the family home. She stirred slightly and mumbled, "Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, baby," Brianna whispered. In their own room, the master bedroom that Brianna would now share with Christopher, they changed out of their wedding clothes and lay in bed together, exhausted but happy. "Mrs. Thornton," Christopher typed, showing her the phone screen. "Mr. Thornton," Brianna replied, grinning. Christopher set his phone aside and pulled her close. No more words were needed. They held each other in the dark, listening to each other breathe, feeling the warmth and safety and rightness of being together. This was home. This was family. This was the life they had built from one moment of kindness, one choice to help, one refusal to let desperation be the end of the story. Outside, the November wind rustled the last leaves from the trees. Inside, the Thornton family slept peacefully, secure in their love, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. And tomorrow did bring new things. Beautiful things. 6 months after the wedding, the foundation opened a second location in a different part of the city, expanding their reach to help even more families. A year after the wedding, Brianna published her first collection of poetry, titled From Snow to Spring, A Journey Home. It became a bestseller, her words resonating with anyone who had ever faced hardship and found hope on the other side. 18 months after the wedding, Christopher and Brianna welcomed a new baby into their family, a son they named Michael after Christopher's father. Shanice was the proudest big sister anyone had ever seen. 2 years after the wedding, Shanice performed her first piano recital, playing a complex piece she had written herself. Christopher and Brianna sat in the front row, both crying with pride. 3 years after the wedding, the foundation received national recognition for its innovative programs, and Brianna was invited to speak at conferences across the country about their approach to helping families in crisis. But through all of it, through every milestone and achievement and expansion, the core remained the same. Christopher, Brianna, and Shanice choosing each other every day, building a life based on kindness, hope, and love. Remembering always where they had started and staying grateful for how far they had come. Sometimes, on snowy winter evenings, they would sit together in the living room and remember. Remember that desperate night, that whispered question, that moment when everything changed. "Sir, can I slip under your coat?" Shanice would say, reenacting her role in the story that had become family legend. And Christopher would pull her close, no longer needing to mime opening a coat because she was always under his protection now, always safe, always loved. "Best question anyone ever asked me," he would type. "Best answer anyone ever gave," Brianna would add. And Shanice, sandwiched between her parents, would smile and say, "Best family anyone could ask for." They were right. All of them. Because sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes desperation opens doors to blessing. Sometimes a simple act of kindness creates ripples that change not just one life but dozens, hundreds, thousands. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stop, to see, to help. And sometimes, just sometimes, that help leads to a love story more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. This was that story. This was that family. This was that love. Born from snow and silence. Grown in patience and partnership. Sealed in commitment and choice. The Thornton family, Christopher, Brianna, Shanice, and baby Michael. Different backgrounds, different struggles, one shared truth. Love always leads. Hope always heals. Kindness always wins. And they lived it every single day, spreading it to everyone they met, honoring the miracle of that snowy night by creating miracles for others. This was their story. This was their mission. This was their life. And it was beautiful,